The frigid winter wind howled across the barren plains of Wyoming Territory, 1873. As Sophia Valentin clutched her torn shawl tighter around her trembling shoulders, each labored step sinking deeper into the merciless snow. The river before her, partially frozen and menacing, seemed to mock her desperate journey as darkness began to fall across the vast emptiness of the frontier. Samuel Garrison spotted the faint silhouette against the snow-blanketed landscape, a dark smudge against white that shouldn't have been there. He pulled the reins of his Mustang, narrowing his eyes against the biting wind that stung his weathered face. The cattle drive could wait. Something wasn't right. "Hold up there, fellas," he called to the two ranch hands accompanying him. "Something by the river." He dismounted with practiced ease despite the cold numbing his fingers, the crunch of snow beneath his boots breaking the eerie silence. As he approached, the shape took form a woman, barely conscious, her lips blue and her dark hair frozen in tendrils around her pale face. "Lord Almighty," Sam muttered, immediately shrugging out of his heavy buffalo coat. Without hesitation, he wrapped it around her near-lifeless form. She was breathing, but barely, her eyelids fluttering weakly as he lifted her into his arms. "Miss, can you hear me?" His deep voice was gentle despite its urgency. "We're gonna get you somewhere warm." Her eyes opened, briefly striking amber eyes that locked with his for just a moment before closing again. It was enough. In that fleeting connection, Sam felt something shift inside him, like a key turning in a lock he didn't know existed. "Jenkins, ride ahead to the ranch. Tell Mrs. Peterson to ready a hot bath and the spare room. Daniels, help me get her on my horse." The journey back to Whispering Pines Ranch was tense, with Sam cradling the woman against his chest as he rode, feeling her shallow breaths and praying each one wouldn't be her last. The ranch appeared on the horizon like salvation itself, smoke from the chimney promising warmth and life. Martha Peterson, the housekeeper, was waiting at the door, her normally stern face creased with concern. "Bring her right through, Mr. Garrison," she commanded, already rolling up her sleeves. "The bath is ready, and I've warmed extra blankets." Sam carried his fragile charge into the modest ranch house, through to the small room where steam rose from a copper tub. Only then did he hesitate, looking down at the unconscious woman in his arms. "I'll take care of her now," Martha said firmly, reading his thoughts. "You men wait outside, I'll call if I need anything." Reluctantly, Sam relinquished the woman to Martha's capable hands and retreated to pace the main room, his mind racing. Who was she? Where had she come from? There wasn't another ranch or homestead for miles in the direction she'd appeared from. It was nearly an hour later when Martha emerged, wiping her hands on her apron. "She's resting now. The warmth brought her around some. Says her name is Sophia Valentin." "Is she going to be all right?" Sam asked, his voice rough with concern. "God willing." "Her fingers and toes still have feeling, so no frostbite, thank the Lord. But she's weak, exhausted. She needs rest and food." Martha paused, studying Sam's face. "She's asking for the man who saved her." Sam nodded, removing his hat and running a hand through his thick brown hair before entering the room. It was warm and dim, lit only by an oil lamp on the bedside table. The woman Sophia lay beneath several quilts, her damp dark hair spread across the pillow. Her face, cleaned of frost and dirt, revealed delicate features and a sprinkle of freckles across the bridge of her nose. Her eyes opened as he approached those same amber eyes that had pierced him by the riverbank. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You saved my life." Sam cleared his throat, suddenly awkward in a way he never was when dealing with cattle rustlers or business negotiations. "Anyone would have done the same, Miss Valentin. I'm Samuel Garrison. This is my ranch you're resting at." She attempted a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I don't know how I'll ever repay your kindness, Mr. Garrison. No need for repayment, just focus on getting strong again." He shifted his weight, curiosity finally getting the better of him. "If you don't mind my asking, what were you doing out there, alone in this weather?" A shadow passed over her face and her eyes darted away. I was traveling. My stage was robbed 2 days back. The driver and other passengers were killed. I ran and just kept running. Sam's jaw tightened. Stage robberies were becoming more frequent, but they usually didn't end in massacres. Did you see who did it? She shook her head slightly, then winced at the movement. Men in masks. They were looking for something specific. When they didn't find it, they started shooting. You're safe now, Sam assured her, though his mind was already turning over the implications. We're 20 miles from the nearest town, but I'll send one of my men to alert the sheriff tomorrow. No. Her sudden vehemence startled him, and she immediately tempered her reaction. I mean, perhaps we could wait, just a few days. I'm not ready to relive it all just yet. Sam studied her face, noting the fear behind her exhaustion. Something wasn't adding up, but he couldn't bring himself to press her now, not when she was so vulnerable. All right, he conceded, but the sheriff will need to know eventually. Relief visibly washed over her. Thank you. Just a few days of rest, that's all I ask. You're welcome to stay as long as you need, Miss Valentin. We don't get many visitors out here, but we know how to be hospitable. A genuine smile touched her lips this time. Please call me Sophia, then you must call me Sam. He returned her smile, ignoring the unusual warmth spreading through his chest. Rest now. Martha will bring you some broth when you're ready. As he turned to leave, her voice stopped him at the door. Your coat. I still have your coat. Sam glanced back, seeing his buffalo coat folded at the foot of her bed. Keep it for now. Seems to suit you better than me at the moment. The days that followed fell into an unexpectedly comfortable rhythm. Sophia regained her strength gradually, moving from bed to sitting by the fire, to eventually taking short walks around the ranch house with Sam's steady arm for support. Her presence transformed the practical, bachelor atmosphere of Whispering Pines. Even Martha, initially suspicious of the mysterious young woman, found herself charmed by Sophia's willingness to help with whatever her recovering strength allowed. Sam found reasons to delay his planned cattle drive, delegating more responsibility to his foreman while he personally showed Sophia around the ranch property. He told himself it was simple courtesy to a guest who had nowhere else to go, but the truth was simpler and more complicated. He enjoyed her company in a way he hadn't enjoyed anyone's in a long time. You've built something remarkable here, Sophia commented one clear afternoon as they stood on the porch, surveying the sprawling ranch lands. Her cheeks had regained their color, a healthy flush against her olive complexion that made her amber eyes even more striking. It wasn't all me, Sam replied, leaning against the porch railing. My pa started it with barely 50 head of cattle and a run-down cabin. I just built on what he began. Is he? Past 5 years back, Ma went a year after him. Sam's expression remained steady, though his eyes reflected old grief. It's just me now, running things. Sophia nodded, understanding in her gaze. It must get lonely sometimes. The observation caught him off guard with its accuracy. I suppose it does, though I've never thought about it much. Always too busy with the next season, the next drive, the next problem to solve. That's how we avoid feeling the loneliness, she said softly, looking out at the horizon. We stay busy enough not to notice it. Something in her tone made Sam wonder about her own story, the parts she still hadn't shared. In the week since her arrival, she'd offered little about her past beyond vague mentions of growing up back east. What about your family? He asked carefully. Sophia was quiet for so long that Sam thought she might not answer. They died in a fire when I was 18, she finally said. Our home in Boston, it was an accident, at least that's what everyone said. You don't believe it was. She shrugged, wrapping her arms around herself despite the relatively mild day. It doesn't matter what I believe. It was 5 years ago now, the same age as he was, Sam realized. 23 and already carrying the weight of profound loss. Perhaps that explained the connection he felt with her, a shared understanding that didn't need words. Is that why you came west? He prompted gently. Partly. There was nothing left for me there. I worked as a schoolteacher in Chicago for a while, then St. Louis. She hesitated. I was heading to San Francisco when the stage was attacked. Sam didn't miss the shadow that crossed her face again at the mention of the robbery, but he didn't press. Instead, he straightened up and offered his arm. Come on. There's something I want to show you. He led her to the stable, where his prized Appaloosa mare had recently foaled. The sight of the gangly-legged colt brought the first genuinely delighted laugh he'd heard from Sophia, a sound that seemed to brighten the dusty stable. "He's beautiful," she exclaimed, carefully approaching the protective mother and her offspring. To Sam's surprise, the normally skittish mare allowed Sophia to stroke her neck while the colt investigated the newcomer with curious lips. "She likes you," Sam observed, impressed. "Daisy doesn't take to strangers easily." "Animals can sense when you mean them no harm," Sophia replied, gently scratching behind the mare's ears. "My father kept horses in Boston, not working horses like these, but carriage horses, show horses. I spent more time in the stables than was proper for a young lady." Sam smiled, leaning against the stall door. "I can't imagine you cared much for what was proper." Her answering smile held a hint of mischief. "You'd be right about that, Mr. Garrison. It drove my mother to distraction." The easy conversation continued as they walked back to the house, and Sam found himself sharing stories of his own childhood misadventures, tales he hadn't recounted in years. Sophia listened attentively, asking questions that showed genuine interest rather than mere politeness. That evening, for the first time, she joined Sam at the dinner table instead of taking her meal in her room. Martha had outdone herself with a hearty stew and freshly baked bread, seemingly pleased to finally have someone who appreciated her cooking beyond the usual grunt of approval from the ranch hands. "This is wonderful, Mrs. Peterson," Sophia complimented, breaking off another piece of bread. "I haven't had a meal this good since, well, in a very long time." Martha flushed with pleasure. "It's nice cooking for someone with proper manners for a change. These cowboys wouldn't know fine cooking if it danced on their plates." Sam raised an eyebrow. "I've been complimenting your cooking for years, Martha." HMPH. "Out of necessity, not appreciation," the housekeeper retorted, but there was no real bite in her words. The comfortable banter continued through the meal, and Sam couldn't help noticing how naturally Sophia fit into the household, as if she'd always been there. It was a dangerous line of thinking, he knew. She'd never mentioned staying permanently, and he had no right to assume she would want to remain on an isolated Wyoming ranch when she'd been bound for San Francisco. After dinner, they sat by the fire while Martha cleared away the dishes, refusing Sophia's offers of help. The crackling flames cast a warm glow across Sophia's features as she gazed into them, lost in thought. "Penny for your thoughts," Sam prompted, breaking the comfortable silence. She looked up, a small smile playing at her lips. "I was just thinking how strange life's paths can be. A week ago, I was certain I was going to die in that snow, and now—" She gestured around the cozy room. "It almost feels like I was meant to be found." "Perhaps you were," Sam replied, surprising himself with the sentiment. He wasn't usually one for notions of fate or destiny. Their eyes met across the small space between their chairs, and something unspoken passed between them, an acknowledgement of the growing connection neither had anticipated. The moment was broken by a knock at the door, followed by the entrance of Jenkins, Sam's foreman, his hat clutched respectfully in his hands. "Sorry to interrupt, boss, but there's trouble with the north fence line. Looks like someone's been cutting it." "Found fresh tracks heading out toward Rattlesnake Pass." Sam's expression hardened. "Rustlers? Can't say for certain, but we're missing about 20 head from that pasture." Standing, Sam reached for his gun belt hanging by the door. "Get 3 men and meet me at the stables in 10 minutes. Jenkins nodded and disappeared into the night. Sam turned back to Sophia, who had risen from her chair, concern evident on her face. "I'm sorry, I have to deal with this. Cattle thieves are getting bolder these days." "Of course," she said, though he noticed her hands were clasped tightly together. "Please be careful." He was touched by her worry, Always, Em. Martha will be here and the ranch hands' quarters aren't far. You'll be perfectly safe. Sophia nodded, but something in her expression suggested her concern wasn't just for her own safety. It gave Sam a strange flutter of hope as he strapped on his gun belt and reached for his spare coat. The buffalo coat still remained in Sophia's room, though she no longer needed it for warmth. "I'll be back by morning," he promised, and on impulse, he took her hand and gave it a gentle squeeze before heading out into the night. The cattle thieves had left an obvious trail, suggesting either arrogance or inexperience, neither of which boded well for a peaceful resolution. Sam and his men followed the tracks through the moonlit landscape. The familiar terrain transformed into a silvery alien world under the full moon's glow. They caught up to the rustlers at dawn, just as they were making camp in a sheltered canyon. 5 men, all heavily armed, with Sam's cattle penned in a makeshift corral of rope and stakes. "We outnumber them, but only just," Sam muttered to Jenkins as they observed from a ridge above. "I'd rather not have a shootout if we can avoid it." Jenkins nodded his agreement. "They don't look like professionals. Might be those drifters that passed through Hollow Point last week looking for work." Sam considered their options. "We'll approach from both sides, make sure they know they're surrounded. Maybe they'll surrender without bloodshed." Unfortunately, the thieves had posted a lookout who spotted Jenkins' approach. Gunfire erupted, sending everyone diving for cover. Sam cursed under his breath. This was exactly what he'd hoped to avoid. "We just want our cattle back," he shouted from behind a boulder. "Nobody needs to die today." The only response was another volley of bullets pinging off the rocks around him. One of his men returned fire, and soon the canyon was filled with the deafening exchange of gunshots and the panicked lowing of the trapped cattle. The standoff lasted nearly an hour before one of the rustlers finally called out. "We're coming out, don't shoot." Cautiously, Sam watched as 4 men emerged with their hands raised. The 5th was being supported between 2 others, blood staining his shirt from a shoulder wound. "Smart decision," Sam said, keeping his rifle trained on them as he approached. "Jenkins, round up the cattle. The rest of you keep these men covered." The leader of the group, a weather-beaten man with a scar running down his cheek, glared at Sam. "We were just trying to survive, mister." "Times are hard. Times are hard for everyone," Sam replied without sympathy. "Doesn't give you the right to steal what other men have worked for." They bound the thieves' hands and confiscated their weapons, tending to the wounded man's injury well enough to ensure he wouldn't bleed out before they reached town. As they prepared to head back to the ranch with the recovered cattle, the scarred leader suddenly fixed Sam with a calculating look. "You're Garrison, ain't you, from Whispering Pines Ranch?" Sam paused, instantly wary. "What of it?" The man's mouth twisted into what might have been a smile. "Heard you took an astray recently. Dark-haired woman, found her half dead." Ice formed in Sam's veins, but he kept his expression neutral. "News travels fast, sure does, especially when there's reward money involved." The man leaned forward despite his bound hands. "There are people looking for her, Garrison, important people who pay well for information." Sam stepped closer, lowering his voice so only the rustler could hear. "Who's looking for her?" The man's smile widened. "Wouldn't you like to know? Maybe we could come to an arrangement. You let us go with a couple of your cattle for our trouble, and I'll tell you exactly who your houseguest is running from." For a brief, tempting moment, Sam considered the offer. Sophia's reluctance to speak about her past, her fear of contacting the sheriff, there was clearly more to her story than she'd revealed. But as quickly as the thought came, he dismissed it. "I don't make deals with thieves," he said coldly, stepping back. "Jenkins, let's move out. We'll drop these men with Sheriff Hayes in Hollow Point." The journey back was tense, with Sam's mind racing through possibilities. Who was Sophia really? Was she in some kind of trouble with the law, or was she running from something more personal? The rustler's implication that important people were looking for her suggested the latter. By the time they reached town and handed the thieves over to the sheriff, Sam had made his decision. Whatever Sophia's secrets were, she deserved the chance to share them on her own terms. He wouldn't betray the trust that had been building between them by listening to the claims of a cattle thief, Sheriff Hayes, a grizzled man with a perpetually suspicious nature, eyed the prisoners as his deputy led them to the cells. "Good work bringing them in, Garrison." "Been a rash of rustling all through the territory lately." Sam nodded, turning to leave, but the sheriff's next words stopped him. "Heard you had some excitement out at your place recently. Found a woman near frozen by the river." Sam turned back slowly, trying to gauge the sheriff's interest. "News certainly does travel. Small towns," Hayes shrugged. "Anything I should know about?" "Just a traveler caught in bad weather," Sam replied casually. "She's recovering at the ranch until she's strong enough to continue her journey." Hayes studied him for a moment. "Well, if she needs any assistance from the law, you let me know." "I'll do that," Sam promised, though he had no intention of bringing Sophia to the sheriff's attention unless she agreed to it. It was late afternoon by the time Sam and his men returned to Whispering Pines. The ranch appeared peaceful, smoke rising steadily from the chimney against the clear blue sky. Sam's tension began to ease at the sight until he noticed the unfamiliar horse tethered outside. A sleek black stallion with expensive tack stood alongside the ranch's working horses, its very presence suggesting a visitor of means. Sam dismounted quickly, handing his reins to Jenkins with a murmured instruction to see to the recovered cattle. As he approached the house, Sam heard voices through the partially open door, Martha's nervous tones, a man's cultured accent, and Sophia's voice, tight with what sounded like controlled fear. "I've told you, Mr. Collins. I have no idea what you're talking about. I was simply a passenger on that stage. Come now, Miss Valentin, or should I say Miss Hargrove, we both know that's not true." Sam pushed the door open without ceremony, taking in the scene in an instant. Sophia stood by the fireplace, her posture rigid. Facing her was a well-dressed man in his 30s, his city clothes and clean-shaven face marking him as an outsider. Martha hovered anxiously at the edge of the room, clearly distressed by the confrontation. The stranger turned at Sam's entrance, offering a smile that didn't reach his cold gray eyes. "Ah, you must be Mr. Garrison. Edwin Collins, at your service." He extended a gloved hand that Sam deliberately ignored. "What's going on here?" Sam asked, moving to stand beside Sophia. He was alarmed to see how pale she had become, her earlier vitality completely drained away. Collins lowered his hand, his smile tightening. "I'm simply having a conversation with Miss Valentin about some property that was lost during a rather unfortunate incident. Property that rightfully belongs to my employer." Sam looked at Sophia, who was staring at Collins with undisguised loathing. "Sophia, do you know what he's talking about?" "He's lying," she said softly. "Whatever he's told you, he's lying," Collins chuckled, the sound entirely without humor. "Your loyalty is admirable, Mr. Garrison, but misplaced. This woman is a thief. She stole valuable documents from my employer, Mr. Victor Blackstone, before fleeing Chicago. We've been tracking her for weeks." "I stole nothing," Sophia insisted, her voice stronger now. "Those papers were my father's. Blackstone forged documents to claim them after the fire." Sam's mind was racing, trying to piece together the fragments of truth from both sides. "What papers?" Collins sighed, as if explaining to a child. "Deed papers, Mr. Garrison. Land deeds for considerable property in California. Gold-rich property. Miss Hargrove's father signed them over to Mr. Blackstone before his unfortunate death, but she refused to accept the transaction. Because it never happened." Sophia's eyes flashed with anger. "My father would never have sold that land. It was meant to secure my future after he was gone." The pieces began to fall into place in Sam's mind: her journey west, the stage robbery, her fear of contacting authorities. "The stage robbery," he said slowly. "That wasn't random, was it?" "They were looking for these papers." Sophia's gaze dropped. "Blackstone's men, yes, but they didn't find them." Her eyes lifted to Collins. "And neither will you." Collins's pleasant facade slipped, revealing a harder expression beneath. "I'm afraid I must insist, Miss Hargrove. My employer is not a patient man, nor a forgiving one. The papers, please." Sam moved slightly, positioning himself more directly between Collins and Sophia. "I think you should leave now, Mr. Collins. Miss Valentin is under my protection." "Protection?" Collins laughed. "From what? The law." "Because I assure you, Mr. Garrison, the law is on our side in this matter. Those documents legally belong to Victor Blackstone." "Then let the courts decide that," Sam countered. "But until then, you're trespassing on my property." Collins studied him for a moment, apparently reassessing the situation. "Very well. I can see you've been influenced by Miss Hargrove's version of events. Perhaps you need time to consider the implications of harboring a thief." He reached into his coat and withdrew a small card, placing it on the table. "When you come to your senses, I'll be staying at the hotel in Hollow Point for 3 days. After that, my associates will take over the search, and they are considerably less diplomatic than I am." The threat hung in the air as Collins adjusted his gloves, nodded curtly to Martha, and walked out the door without another word. Through the window, they watched him mount his horse and ride away, his straight-backed posture never faltering. As soon as he was out of sight, Sophia's composure crumbled. She sank into the nearest chair, burying her face in her hands. Sam knelt beside her, gently touching her shoulder. "Sophia, look at me, please." When she raised her face, her eyes were dry but filled with a mixture of fear and resignation that tore at his heart. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I never meant to bring this trouble to your door. I should leave before Blackstone's men come looking again." "You're not going anywhere," Sam said firmly. "Not until we figure this out." He glanced at Martha, who was hovering uncertainly. "Martha, would you mind giving us a few minutes?" The housekeeper nodded, clearly relieved to escape the tension. Once she had gone, Sam pulled up a chair to sit facing Sophia, their knees almost touching in the small space. "Tell me everything," he said gently. "The whole truth this time." Sophia took a deep breath, steadying herself. "My real name is Sophia Hargrove. Valentin was my mother's maiden name. I've been using it since I left Chicago." She told him about her father, a successful businessman who had invested early in California land, recognizing its potential value before many others. The deeds had become enormously valuable after gold was discovered, making them targets for unscrupulous men like Victor Blackstone, a powerful and corrupt businessman with connections throughout the Midwest. After my parents died in the fire, Blackstone claimed my father had sold him the deeds just weeks before. He produced papers with what looked like my father's signature, but I knew they were forgeries. My father would never have sold that land. He told me it would be my inheritance, my security. "Did you go to the authorities?" Sam asked. Sophia laughed bitterly. "Blackstone owns half the police force in Chicago and has judges in his pocket. When I tried to challenge him, he threatened me. Made it clear that I could accept his generous offer of a small settlement, or I could meet with an unfortunate accident like my parents." Understanding dawned on Sam's face. "The fire wasn't an accident." She shook her head, tears finally spilling over. "I could never prove it, but no. I don't believe it was. My parents died because of those deeds, and Blackstone still didn't get them. My father kept them in a secret compartment in his desk. I found them after the fire and took them before Blackstone's men could search the ruins." "And you've had them all this time?" "I hid them. Changed my name, moved west. Kept moving whenever I thought Blackstone's men might have found me." She wiped at her tears. "I was heading to San Francisco to meet with a lawyer my father had trusted, someone who could help me establish my rightful claim, but Blackstone's men found me again. They attacked the stage, killed everyone else looking for the papers." Sam reached out, taking her trembling hands in his. "Why didn't you tell me this from the beginning?" "Because I've learned not to trust anyone," she admitted sadly. "Blackstone's influence reaches far. And because I was afraid that once you knew the danger I was in, you'd want nothing to do with me. I wouldn't have blamed you." The vulnerability in her admission touched something deep inside Sam. Without thinking, he raised one hand to gently brush a tear from her cheek. "You can trust me, Sophia. I'm not going to let Blackstone or his men hurt you." Her amber eyes searched his, looking for any sign of deception. "Why would you risk yourself for me? You barely know me." It was a fair question, one Sam had been asking himself since he first found her by the river. The answer came to him with surprising clarity. "Maybe I don't know all your secrets yet, but I know enough. I know you're brave and determined. I know you laugh at my terrible jokes and charm every animal on this ranch. I know that in just over a week, you've made Whispering Pines feel more like a home than it has in years." He paused, surprised by his own candor but unwilling to stop now. "And I know that the thought of you leaving ties my stomach in knots in a way nothing ever has before." Sophia's expression softened, hope warring with fear in her gaze. "Sam, I can't ask you to fight my battles. Blackstone is dangerous, truly dangerous. These past days here have been like a beautiful dream, but I've been running long enough to know dreams don't last." Sam's jaw set with determination. "This isn't just your battle anymore. The moment Collins threatened you in my home, it became mine too." He squeezed her hands gently. "Now, tell me where the deeds are. We need to secure them before Collins returns with reinforcements." After a moment's hesitation, Sophia nodded. "They're sewn into the lining of your buffalo coat, the one you wrapped me in by the river. It seemed the safest place. No one would think to look there." Sam couldn't help but smile at her ingenuity. "No wonder you never offered to return it." The moment of levity faded quickly as they considered their next steps. Collins would be back, likely with more men. They needed a plan. "We could take the deeds to Sheriff Hayes," Sam suggested. "He's a good man despite his gruff exterior." Sophia shook her head. "I can't risk it. Blackstone's influence is too widespread. For all we know, he could have gotten to Hayes already. Then we need to get you to San Francisco, to that lawyer you mentioned. It's too dangerous to travel now that they know where I am. They'll be watching the roads, the stage routes." Sam considered this, running a hand through his hair in frustration. Then an idea began to form. "What if we could bring the lawyer to you, or at least get the deeds to him?" Sophia looked skeptical. "How? I have a friend, Thomas Reed. He runs a newspaper in San Francisco. He's fought against corruption before, exposed men like Blackstone. If anyone can help us get those deeds to your lawyer safely, it's him." Hope flickered in Sophia's eyes for the first time since Collins's visit. "You'd trust him with something this important?" "With my life," Sam confirmed. "We fought together in the war. There's no one more trustworthy." The plan took shape quickly after that. Sam would write to Thomas, explaining the situation in coded language they'd developed during the war. Jenkins, whose loyalty was beyond question, would deliver the letter personally, traveling under the guise of purchasing new breeding stock for the ranch. In the meantime, they would need to prepare for Collins's inevitable return. Sam sent for his most trusted ranch hands, briefly explaining that there might be trouble coming and setting up a watch rotation around the property. That evening, after the preparations were in place, Sam and Sophia sat together on the porch, watching the sun set over the distant mountains. Despite the danger hanging over them, there was a newfound openness between them, as if the removal of Sophia's secrets had cleared the air. "Tell me about your San Francisco plans," Sam said softly. "What would you have done once you secured your father's land?" Sophia smiled, her face bathed in the golden light of sunset. "I hadn't thought much beyond proving Blackstone's fraud, getting justice for my parents. And after that," she considered the question, as if it were the first time she'd allowed herself to think so far ahead. "I suppose I might have sold some of the land, kept enough to build a home. I always wanted to teach again. I was good at it in Chicago." Sam tried to imagine her in San Francisco, sophisticated, cultured San Francisco surrounded by the trappings of city life. It was hard to reconcile with the woman who had spent the past week helping birth calves and learning to make Martha's sourdough bread. "You'd be happy there. In the city," Sophia glanced at him, seeming to sense the real question beneath his words. I thought I would be, now I'm not so certain. The admission hung between them, full of unspoken possibilities. Sam wanted to ask what had changed her mind, wanted to know if he was the reason she hesitated. But before he could find the words, Jenkins appeared at the edge of the property, riding hard. Riders coming. He called as he approached. At least 6 men following the main road, armed. Sam was on his feet instantly, his hand going to the revolver at his hip. Collins didn't waste any time. Sophia, get inside. Jenkins, alert the others. But Sophia didn't move, her expression resolute. I'm not hiding, Sam. This is my fight too. He wanted to argue, to insist on her safety, but the determination in her eyes stopped him. Instead, he nodded once and turned his attention to the approaching riders. They came into view as the last rays of sun disappeared beyond the horizon. 6 men on horseback, Collins at their lead. They pulled up in front of the house in a display clearly meant to intimidate, their hands resting openly on their weapons. Mr. Garrison, Collins called, his earlier facade of politeness entirely gone. I've come to collect Miss Hargrove and what belongs to my employer. I trust you've had time to reconsider your position. Sam stepped forward, aware of his ranch hands moving into defensive positions around the property. I have indeed, Mr. Collins, and my answer remains the same. Miss Valentin stays, and whatever papers you're looking for aren't yours to take. Collins sighed dramatically. I was afraid you might be. Unreasonable. Unfortunately, Mr. Blackstone is not a man who accepts refusal. We'll be taking the woman and the deeds one way or another. You'll have to go through me first, Sam replied evenly. Collins's smile was cold, if necessary. The tension stretched between the two groups, the air thick with the promise of violence. Then, unexpectedly, Sophia stepped forward. Wait, she called, her voice clear and strong. There's no need for bloodshed. I'll come with you, Mr. Collins. Sam turned to her in disbelief. Sophia, no. She met his gaze steadily, and he saw something in her eyes, not surrender but calculation. She was playing for time. It's all right, Sam, she said calmly. I'm tired of running. Let me get my things and I'll go peacefully. Collins looked suspicious but nodded. 2 minutes, Miss Hargrove. And don't try anything foolish. Sophia turned and walked back into the house, her head held high. Sam followed, closing the door behind them. What are you doing? He demanded in a fierce whisper. Buying us time, she replied, moving quickly to retrieve the buffalo coat from her room. Collins won't risk a shootout if he thinks I'm cooperating. Once I have the deeds, we can figure out our next move. There are 6 of them, Sophia, armed men who won't hesitate to kill us both once they have what they want. She paused, turning to face him. Do you trust me? The question caught him off guard. Yes, but then follow my lead. She reached up suddenly, placing a hand on his cheek, her touch sending warmth through him despite the dire circumstances. I won't let them hurt you or anyone else because of me. Before Sam could respond, she'd retrieved a small sewing kit from her bag and was quickly working at the lining of the coat, extracting a flat package wrapped in oilcloth. The deed papers. She tucked them into her bodice and handed the empty coat to Sam. Keep this, and be ready. With that cryptic instruction, she opened the door and stepped back onto the porch. Sam followed, his mind racing to understand her plan. I'm ready, Mr. Collins, she announced. But first, I want your word that no harm will come to Mr. Garrison or anyone at this ranch once I leave with you. Collins's mouth twisted in what might have been amusement. You're hardly in a position to negotiate, Miss Hargrove. On the contrary, Sophia replied coolly. I'm the only one who knows where the deeds are. Harm these people and you'll never find them. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Collins's face. Very well. No harm will come to Garrison or his people provided you cooperate fully and the deeds are intact. Sophia nodded and started down the porch steps. Sam moved to follow, but she turned back, placing a restraining hand on his chest. No, Sam, this is where we part ways. I'm not letting you go with them, he insisted, his voice low and urgent. You must, she said softly, her eyes communicating something he couldn't quite grasp. For now. Before he could protest further, She leaned up and pressed her lips to his in a brief, fierce kiss that left him momentarily stunned. Then she pulled away and walked toward Collins and his men. Collins dismounted to help her onto a spare horse, his smug satisfaction evident. "A wise decision, Miss Hargrove. Mr. Blackstone will be pleased." "I doubt that," Sophia replied enigmatically, settling into the saddle. As the group prepared to ride away, Sophia looked back at Sam one last time. There was no fear in her expression now, only a strange confidence that both puzzled and reassured him. "The North Ridge at midnight," she called, loud enough for all to hear. "If you want the deeds, Mr. Collins, that's where they're hidden." With that proclamation, she urged her horse forward, leaving Collins and his men little choice but to follow, their original plan clearly disrupted by this new information. Sam watched them ride away, his mind working furiously. The North Ridge was a rocky outcropping at the farthest edge of his property's difficult terrain, especially at night and far from the main road. Jenkins approached as the riders disappeared into the gathering darkness. "What now, boss? Do we go after them?" "No," Sam replied thoughtfully. "We prepare. I think our Miss Valentin just bought us the advantage." Over the next few hours, Sam outlined his understanding of Sophia's strategy to his men. The North Ridge was familiar territory to them, but would be treacherous for Collins and his city men, especially in darkness. By claiming the deeds were hidden there, Sophia had forced them to approach on ground of her choosing their choosing. By 11, Sam and his ranch hands were in position around the ridge, using the rocky terrain for cover. The night was clear, the moon providing just enough light to see by without revealing their positions. They didn't have to wait long. Collins's party appeared shortly before midnight, making their way cautiously up the ridge. Sophia rode in the center of the group, her posture defiant even from a distance. "Where are the deeds?" Collins demanded once they reached the top of the ridge, his voice carrying clearly in the still night air. "First, you'll release me and promise safe passage," Sophia countered. Collins laughed harshly. "You're in no position to make demands, Miss Hargrove. The deeds, now, very well." Sophia dismounted slowly, every movement deliberate. "They're hidden in that rock formation there. I'll need to show you exactly where." As she led Collins toward the rocks, Sam signaled to his men. They emerged silently from their hiding places, surrounding the group with rifles raised before Collins's men could react. "Drop your weapons," Sam called, stepping into view with his revolver aimed squarely at Collins. "Nice and easy, gentlemen." Collins whirled to face him, fury contorting his features. "You fool! Do you have any idea who you're dealing with? A man who's about to find himself in a world of trouble," Sam replied calmly. "Sheriff Hayes is on his way with a telegram from the federal marshal's office in Denver. Seems Mr. Blackstone's business practices have finally caught up with him." This was a bluff. Hayes wasn't coming, and there was no telegram, but Collins couldn't know that. His uncertainty was evident as his men looked to him for direction. Taking advantage of his distraction, Sophia suddenly shoved Collins hard, sending him stumbling backward. In the same motion, she drew a small derringer from her sleeve Martha's. Sam realized with surprise and pointed it directly at Collins's chest. "The game is over, Mr. Collins," she said, her voice steady. "The deeds are safe, and they'll be presented to a federal judge along with evidence of Blackstone's crimes, including the murder of my parents." Collins's composure cracked entirely. "You have no proof of that, don't I?" Sophia's smile was cold. "Your employer should be more careful about the men he hires. One of the fire starters had an attack of conscience last year, signed a full confession before he died of consumption. I've had it with me all along, another document Blackstone will never get his hands on." The revelation stunned Collins into silence, his face draining of color in the moonlight. His men, seeing the situation was lost, began dropping their weapons as Sam's ranch hands moved in to collect them. "Tie them up," Sam ordered. "We'll take them into town at first light." As his men secured the prisoners, Sam approached Sophia, who still held the derringer pointed unwavering at Collins. "It's over," he said gently, placing a hand on her arm. "You can lower the gun now." Slowly, she lowered the weapon, her composed facade beginning to crack. Sam could see her hands trembling as the full weight of what had just occurred hit her. "You did it," he said, admiration clear in his voice. "That was the bravest thing I've ever seen." Sophia looked up at him, tears shining in her eyes. "I couldn't let them hurt you, any of you." Without hesitation, Sam pulled her into his arms, holding her close as the tension finally released in quiet sobs against his chest. Over her head, he exchanged nods with Jenkins, silently communicating that his foreman should take charge of the prisoners. As Jenkins led the men away, Sam continued to hold Sophia, murmuring reassurances against her hair until her tears subsided. "I'm sorry," she said finally, pulling back slightly to wipe her eyes. "I don't usually fall apart like this." Sam smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I think you're entitled, after everything you've been through." In the moonlight, with danger finally behind them, Sophia's beauty struck him anew, not just her physical appearance, but the strength and courage she displayed. Without thinking, he leaned down and kissed her, a gentle meeting of lips that quickly deepened as she responded with equal fervor. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Sam rested his forehead against hers. "I know you have plans," he said softly. "San Francisco, your father's land, but I'm hoping you might consider staying here with me." Sophia pulled back slightly, searching his face. "What are you saying, Sam?" "I'm saying that in just over a week, you've become more important to me than anything has in years. I'm saying that Whispering Pines has never felt more like a home than it does with you in it." He took a deep breath, gathering his courage. "I'm saying that I've fallen in love with you, Sophia Hargrove, and I'd be honored if you'd consider building a life here, with me." Sophia's eyes widened, a mixture of joy and hesitation crossing her features. "Sam, are you certain? We've known each other such a short time, and my situation is still complicated." "I've never been more certain of anything," he replied without hesitation. "As for complications, we'll face them together. Your father's land is rightfully yours, and I'll help you claim it, but afterward, this could be your home, if you want it to be." For a long moment, Sophia was silent, and Sam felt his heart hammering in his chest. Then, slowly, her expression softened into a smile that reached all the way to her amber eyes. "I think," she said carefully, "that I started falling in love with you the moment you wrapped me in that ridiculous buffalo coat by the river. I just didn't dare believe it could lead anywhere." Hope surged through Sam, and now, she reached up, placing her palm against his cheek. "Now I believe that sometimes life gives you exactly what you need, exactly when you need it, even if it comes in the form of being half frozen by a river in Wyoming." Sam laughed, the sound full of relief and joy. "Is that a yes?" Instead of answering with words, Sophia rose on her tiptoes and kissed him again, pouring all her feelings into the connection between them. When they parted, her smile was radiant. "That's a yes, Samuel Garrison." "That's definitely a yes." The following months were a whirlwind of activity. With Collins and his men in custody and the telegram Sam sent to his friend Thomas in San Francisco, the wheels of justice began to turn against Victor Blackstone. Thomas not only published a detailed exposé of Blackstone's criminal enterprises, but also connected Sophia with reputable attorneys who helped her establish her legitimate claim to her father's California properties. By summer's end, Blackstone was facing multiple criminal charges, his empire crumbling as former associates rushed to save themselves by providing evidence against him. The confession Sophia had obtained from one of the arsonists proved crucial in linking him to the murder of her parents. With her legal troubles resolved and her inheritance secured, Sophia had decisions to make about her future. The California properties were indeed valuable, offering her financial independence she'd never known before. But as autumn painted Whispering Pines in hues of gold and crimson, her choice became increasingly clear. "I'm selling most of the California land," she announced one evening as she and Sam sat on the porch, watching the sunset that had become their daily ritual. "I'll keep a small parcel as a connection to my father, but the rest will be sold to settlers who will actually work the land." Sam nodded, trying to keep his expression neutral despite the hope rising in his chest. "That sounds like a wise decision. Have you thought about what you'll do next?" Sophia turned to him with a knowing smile. "I believe a certain rancher in Wyoming territory made me an offer a few months back, something about building a life together. The offer stands," Sam replied, taking her hand in his, more firmly than ever. "Well then," Sophia said, her amber eyes sparkling in the fading light, "I'd like to formally accept, on one condition." "Name it." "Whispering Pines needs a school. There are ranch children and homesteaders' children all across this valley with no proper education. I'd like to use some of my inheritance to build one." Sam grinned, pulling her closer. "I think that could be arranged, Miss Hargrove, or should I start calling you Mrs. Garrison?" Sophia laughed, the sound that had become his favorite melody in the world. "Not quite yet, Mr. Garrison. I believe there are proper steps to be taken first." Taking her cue, Sam slid from the porch swing to kneel before her, producing a small velvet box from his pocket. "I've been carrying this around for weeks, waiting for the right moment," he admitted. "It was my mother's. Pa gave it to her when they first came to this land with nothing but dreams and determination." He opened the box to reveal a simple gold band set with a single pearl, luminous in the twilight. "Sophia Hargrove, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Of building a future here with me, teaching our valley's children, raising a family of our own someday, growing old together on this land?" Tears glistened in Sophia's eyes as she nodded, too overwhelmed for words at first. "Yes," she finally whispered. "Yes to all of it, Sam. To every bit of that future." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Sam felt the completion of a circle that had begun that winter day by the frozen river. From the moment he'd wrapped her in his coat, something profound had changed in both their lives, a turning point neither could have anticipated, but both now recognized as the hand of fate. The wedding took place that October, with the aspens blazing gold against the blue Wyoming sky. The entire valley turned out to celebrate, from ranch hands to homesteaders, all united in their affection for the couple who had quickly become central to the community. Martha, beaming with pride, had outdone herself with the wedding feast, and Jenkins, surprisingly sentimental beneath his gruff exterior, gave a toast that left few dry eyes in the gathering. Thomas had traveled from San Francisco to stand as Sam's best man, bringing news that Blackstone's conviction was assured. As they danced under the harvest moon, surrounded by friends who had become family, Sam held his bride close and whispered in her ear, "Happy." Sophia looked up at him, her amber eyes reflecting all the love and hope that had grown between them since that winter day. "Completely, are you?" "More than I ever thought possible," he answered truthfully. "Though I'm a bit worried about one thing." She raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "Winter's coming again. Promise me you won't go wandering by any frozen rivers?" Sophia laughed, the sound carrying across the celebration. "I promise. Besides, I don't need to find another cowboy to wrap me in his coat." She nestled closer in his arms. "I've already found everything I was looking for." As the celebration continued around them, Sam and Sophia shared a kiss that sealed their promise, a promise of love born beside a frozen river, tested by danger, and now blooming into a future neither could have imagined when fate first brought them together in the wild Wyoming winter. The school Sophia established became the pride of the valley, a single-room building that nonetheless provided education previously unavailable to the scattered children of the region. Using methods she developed during her teaching years in Chicago, she created a curriculum that was both practical and inspiring, preparing her students for whatever future they might choose. Sam expanded Whispering Pines, applying the proceeds from Sophia's California lands to purchase additional acreage and improve their breeding stock. Under their joint management, the ranch prospered beyond his father's wildest dreams, becoming one of the most successful operations in the territory. Their first child, a daughter they named Alina after Sophia's mother, arrived the following summer, a bright-eyed, spirited girl who inherited her mother's amber eyes and her father's determination. 2 years later, they welcomed a son, James, who from his earliest days showed his grandfather's affinity for the land through the years. Their home remained a haven for those in need. Just as Sam had once found Sophia half frozen beside the river, they opened their doors to travelers, orphans, and those seeking a fresh start. The buffalo coat that had saved Sophia's life hung proudly by their door, a constant reminder of how their story began and the twists of fate that had brought them together. On cold winter evenings, they would often sit before the fire, their children gathered around as they told the tale of the half-frozen woman by the river and the cowboy who wrapped her in his coat, a story that, no matter how many times they told it, never lost its magic. And on those nights, as their children drifted off to sleep and the fire burned low, Sam and Sophia would share a look that contained all the gratitude and wonder of two people who had found, against all odds, exactly where they belonged with each other, in the wild beauty of their Wyoming home.